Charlie Kirk was shot and killed today. I can't believe he's dead. I can't believe it. I saw the video. I don't want you to see the video. He got shot in the neck. As we are taping this live, we don't know who the perpetrator is yet. We're going to give you a lot more details in a minute. But I want to start out by saying my heart goes out to Charlie's family. He had a wife, Erica, who I met in one of our appearances together. He has a 3-year-old daughter, or had, and a 1-year-old son. And violence is not the answer. It's never, ever, ever the answer. It is intellectual surrender. It's saying, I don't know how to win with my mind and with my ideas. Instead, I'm going to resort to violence, and that is a form of intellectual defeat. It is obviously immoral. It is, if you are in favor of violence, you are not on the left by definition. Ours is a peace movement. Ours is a movement of non-violence. If you believe in violence, you are not on the left and you are not for peace. What happened here was an unmitigated tragedy. So we have a lot to discuss here, but let's give you the details of what happened first.
Yeah, it's unfolding fast, furious, late breaking, Cenk, John, today. Charlie Kirk assassinated, happened at an event at Utah Valley University. As of bringing you this story at this hour, authorities do not have the suspect in custody. Images and videos of the attack are circulating online already. We're not going to show you those images because they are extremely graphic. So you can imagine what went down in Utah Valley University today. University has closed its campus, canceled all classes until further notice. They said Kirk was shot from a building about 200 yards away from where he was speaking. Here's exactly what happened just before Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. Video posted on social media shows the moment Charlie Kirk was shot, the seconds leading to the incident. Kirk was being asked questions about mass shootings in America. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America in the last 10 years, a person asked? Counting or not counting gang violence? Kirk responds right before he is shot. This account, according to the New York Times. Witness named Tyler McGettigan said he was surprised by the lack of security at this event. I was expecting when I got here that I'd have to pass through some kind of security, but that just wasn't a thing. No one checked the barcode or the QR code. There was no checkpoint to get in. It was literally anyone could walk in if they wanted. Not long ago, there was this from President Donald Trump on Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved, admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. President Donald Trump, a short time ago, perhaps announcing it, Charlie Kirk's assassination to the world. I was watching, monitoring online, Cenk and John, and that was the first confirmation of his death. It's just, I mean, we're just talking about him. Of course he made headlines, of course he made news, and of course he reached a lot of young people and had enormous political power and reach. And to think that here we are again.
Yeah, so I want to talk about what should be the left's reaction in a second. But to start with my reaction, I was on calls all day, and so I actually had not seen it until I got on a call and somebody said, well, you know, we understand if you got to go. And I was like, why would I have to go? And they said, Charlie Kirk's been shot in the neck. And I was like, no, I didn't, it didn't compute. Couldn't believe it. And then, you know, I started looking at all the news and trying to figure out what happened. And then I got the notice that he had died. And I'm still stunned. I still can't believe it. So I think that this struck me more. One, obviously, I knew him, so whenever you know a human being, it is way more personal to you. But I hope to God that we all have enough empathy that you didn't have to know him to know that this was a great tragedy and terrible. And of course, guys, one of the ramifications of this is that we're now all in danger. There, but for the grace of God, go I. I've been in that spot doing a speech like that, dozens of times, hundreds of times. So what are we gonna do here? Is violence gonna go break out in America and we just start killing each other? This is terrible. It doesn't get any worse than this. And I don't wanna hear anything about Charlie Kirk's views today. That's not the point. And I think part of the reason why it struck me more is because of his age, how young he is. And so many people these days have, like Trump, survived the assassination attempt. And so, I don't know, maybe we started thinking, or I started thinking that it wasn't gonna happen. But it did happen and he's actually dead. And so it's not just heartbreaking, it is a terrible development in American politics. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I obviously have a lot of thoughts. I'm like you, I'm stunned. I mean, I didn't know him, I never met him, but like he's, in a way, does something very similar to what we do every day. He comments on politics. We've all had death threats. I'm sure we've all had stalkers. There's been events that have been disrupted, scary stuff like that. So this is in a very real way, like in terms of political violence when it comes to the media, this is like a worst case scenario. It's the last thing you want to happen, and it's a reminder of the dark place we're in America. And like Cenk, you've been covering the news a lot longer than I have, but we've had dark periods in the 12 or 13 years that I've been covering politics. Is by far the darkest time, and in particular when it comes to violence, to the normalization of just like fantasizing about or making light of people you disagree with being murdered. That weird bloodlust that just feels like it's always out there. Memes about invading Chicago, people, I want a migrant to be eaten by an alligator, or maybe they'll be eaten by sharks. It just feels like everything is just steeped in a desire for blood, and it's become so normalized, even with politicians. And the country's dark in a lot of ways, but there's just so much violence. I think that's the thing. Even today, a lot of people are talking about the fact that like there's other shootings happening as this one is being processed. You don't even have time to focus on like this big story as more and more violence happens. And in the area of political violence, like these things happen that should be the biggest news story of the year, and nobody even remembers it like a week later. The CDC was shot up. Barely anyone even talked about that. It didn't even merit government discussion. A state representative in Minnesota was assassinated, her husband assassinated. When was the last time you heard them talk about that in the news? It's just the most normalized thing. And yeah, so it's scary, when you do something like this. And I'm sure obviously we already were worried about stuff like this happening. Like I said, I've been stalked or whatever, but now we have to be, Cenk, you do public events, you do events out in the open. You gotta be worried about that stuff. And it's the last thing that you want, anyone to have to think about with everything else going on.
I never met him, and Cenk's right. So is John. This is not about political views, but we were used to just discussing and opining. And when I first saw the news, I thought, well, he'll be okay. And a Republican friend of mine who's pretty dialed in texted me that he's dead, and I said, well, come on, that's not confirmed. But I feel this loss. Couldn't have disagreed with him more, but it's so tragic how when this happens, the worst, all that went out the window. I'm thinking everything I have in common with this person who has a right to free speech, who has a daughter, some reports say may have been with him. Here's a fellow human being. And I kept looking at the screen saying, this man should be here. This makes absolutely no sense. This man should be here. All of the discourse and the disagreement goes out the window. I just can't believe, even in light of everything else that we've watched unfold, the violence on and on and on, that this has actually happened on this day.
Yeah, so it's interesting you said that, because one of our members on our website just wrote in. It's Teddy Lucy Linda. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all. That said, it is truly shocking, and truthfully, I'm surprised by the sadness that I feel. My heart breaks for his wife and his 2 little ones who will never know their father. Oof. At 3 and 1, they're never going to know him. This is not the way. So look, at first I saw a bunch of people on the right claiming that the left was celebrating. I hope to God that that's true for almost no one. And I am positive that it is not true for the overwhelming majority of the left that are good-hearted people and deeply moral, decent people. That is why we fight for nonviolence and peace, etc. But I'm here to shame the people who are celebrating this in any way, shape, or form, who are not, who are taking it lightly, who are attacking Charlie Kirk today. So we didn't agree with him. So what? That you fight that out and you win in the battle of ideas, not in the battle of guns and weapons and bullets and murder and death. If you think that's what the left is, you don't understand a single thing about the left. If you think that's what the peace movement's about, you're very, very stupid. That is the exact opposite of the peace movement. We try to minimize the damage done. And if you're going to whataboutisms, yeah, I know, guys. I know that Pelosi's husband was attacked with a hammer. I know Dylan Roof. I know the guy who attacked Latinos, the guy who attacked the synagogues, etc. I know their manifestos. But what about Charlie? Charlie's dead now. And so we don't know who did it yet, but it would be surprising if it wasn't someone who disagreed with him politically, because that's what he's mainly known for. Or the only thing he's known for. So it is deeply immoral to not be outraged by this. And I hope to God none of us make that mistake. And by the way, now we get to way lower on the priority list. Once you get past the immorality of it, etc., to how stupid it is. So now, not only will you have greatly increased the amount of violence in the country, again, if you're on the left, that's the most counterproductive thing you could do. Number 2, you now have millions of folks on the right who almost all have guns, who are in a blind rage today. Okay, so you've now endangered all of us. Okay, third, and John is right, guys. I mean, just last week we did or just a couple of days ago, we did a story about all these people who were sending Anna death threats. So these death threats, so if you're not in the media or political world these days, and you might not realize this because it doesn't actually happen that often to the super powerful, to the CNNs, to the politicians. So every once in a while when it does, it'll become like a major news event and they'll all get, go nuts over it, etc. But for us in the trenches, on the left and the right, it's so common. It's so heartbreakingly common that we get death threats and threats on our life and health and etc. So now this person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk has amplified that massively for everyone. So it can't be any dumber, it can't be any worse. And if you care about the politics of it, you've now made Charlie Kirk a martyr. And so it just couldn't be more wrong in every imaginable way. So if anyone on the left is heartless and disgusting enough to not realize the tragedy of this, I'm here to fight them. And through obviously words, rhetoric, politics, whatever you need. But I'm not gonna let people go around saying inhuman things and pretending that they're on the left.
Yeah, I think, granted, I'm not as online, but thankfully I haven't seen anyone with like a prominent platform that said anything like that. I've seen comments definitely, but not from people with a prominent platform. But I have like, it's one of the things that I think is most shocking about this is that there's the tragedy that happened, and then there's the fear and anxiety of what could potentially come. which can come in a number of different forms. So as you pointed out, there's a lot of people who like Charlie Kirk that have guns, some of whom are violent people and have obsessed about the possibility of violence. So they might be triggered to do something. By the way, regardless of who it ends up that did this and what their motivation was, I mean, I think everybody suspects, and I think there's good reason to suspect what the motivation would be, and that's most likely what caused it, but it's not always that way. I mean, the guy in Butler was a Republican. Like sometimes people are crazy, sometimes people are narcissistic and want to get in the news. That could end up being the case. I think it's most likely what people suspect. So right wingers could potentially want to lash out. You could potentially have a left winger who wants to do a copycat thing, which is another scary thing. Again, regardless of whatever it ends up that the actual motivation was. And then in the meantime, I think we might have some graphics. So you have some leftists who are making jokes. You also have some incredibly powerful right wingers that are not interested in finding out what the motivation was or who it was. And they're calling for like Chris Rufo, who is an incredibly powerful person. He's calling for an end of the left. Investigations of every left-wing NGO, every group, every donor. I mean, there's a lot of people that are jumping to wanting a war to come out of this. And Trump, of course, has shown a magnificent willingness to deploy the weight and power of the government against his political opponents. There's gonna be a lot of pressure on him to do exactly that in this case, regardless, again, if we ever find out what the motivation was. And so there's a lot of reason to worry about what might end up being done either to leftists generally or to the Democratic Party or to its donors or whatever as a result of this. And there's a lot of people online right now that are not being at all, like they're not keeping their cards close to the vest on what they'd like to see happen.
I'm gonna read 2 comments from our YouTube members. Mojo 1 said, I'm a conservative Republican, Charlie fan minus Israel. So if you're wondering why they're a YouTube member, because we do an open-minded, open-hearted show, and people come to us from across the political spectrum, and we try to be as honest as humanly possible. We try so hard to get to the truth and try to be decent, moral people for everyone involved. So I appreciate you being here. But he continues, I don't know what to do. I have a growing vengeance in my heart, trying not to feel radical. So guys, when people that they feel close to, and if you're on the right and you listen to Charlie, put aside our views and politics and policy, but they felt super close to him, and I get that. I 100% get that. Now they're so angry. And can you understand that? Can you feel that? Can you understand if that happened to one of us, how angry we would all feel? It is so important that in a moment like this, that we double down on what the left is supposed to be good at, which is empathy. You have to have empathy for him and his family. And if you don't, you've lost a piece of yourself. You've lost a piece of your ideology too. Our side is supposed to be the side that has more empathy. And so I get that feeling of rage, but we have got to get it to a place where you do something productive with your emotions, your justifiable emotions over this, instead of doing something stupid and adding to the problem. If we keep adding and adding and adding to the problem, we're never gonna get to the answer. And Nerd Girl Dragon, another member on YouTube, said, I've been so sickened by the number of people in comments cheering his death. As always, TYT brings me comfort that not all of us have lost our humanity. Violence is never the answer, his poor kids. Look, I don't know, I've seen 1 or 2 comments. I haven't seen a lot, so I don't want the idea out there that there's a big contingent on the left that are celebrating this. I think it's got to be a tiny percentage, okay? But unfortunately, that tiny percentage is loud and obnoxious, and they put the very worst face for the left forward. I mean, when you celebrate violence, what does that do? Like, let's say that I don't know what the motivation of this guy was. We don't even know who the guy was who shot him, right? But if it's, there's many issues that people disagree with Charlie on. But something that was in the news a lot lately was, of course, Israel, right? So how does it help to have one more person dead? That doesn't help at all. That sets us back. That sets us back tremendously. We're the side for no violence. We didn't want anyone dead on October 7th. If your heart didn't break for those 36 Israeli kids who died on that day, again, there's something a little missing in you if you can't grieve for the children. And obviously, we grieve for the 64,000 at a bare minimum dead in Gaza and the 20,000 children dead there. The answer to that is not more death and violence, is not more people dead on the other side. The answer to that is peace. We all have to double down, triple down, do everything in our power right now to get to nonviolence and peace and to empathy. Empathy and love is what solves hatred and war. So, I love this quote. I've always loved this quote from Martin Luther King. Took me a long time and a lot of maturing to understand it. But he said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can. Because it's true, once you bring in extra hate, all it does is compound the hate that was already there. So it literally hate cannot drive out hate. It could only multiply it. The only way you get past the hate is once you empathize with one another. And once you do, and yeah, to some degree, Charlie and us tried that. A lot of times we failed and we yelled at each other. Sometimes we succeeded and agreed, and then we went back to fighting and debating and etc. But that's supposed to be what we do. We're supposed to debate. We're supposed to disagree. We're not supposed to murder each other. And so now to the point that John made, okay, now what's gonna happen to freedom of speech? Now everybody's gonna be afraid to speak out on whichever side, on any side, on any issue. Because if you speak out and you make someone else angry, maybe you're next. So this is, and when societies go more towards violence and less towards speech, I guarantee you that is not a good situation for the left. So let alone the whole country, let alone as I've re-emphasized now countless times, the deep immorality of the act itself. But this could lead to crackdowns. This could lead to taking away more rights, etc. So if you're on the left and you do violence, you're the most immoral, counterproductive person who does more damage to our cause and to the cause of humanity than you could possibly imagine. In the midst of this horrible, tragic day where Charlie Kirk has been shot and killed in Utah while doing an event there, a fight broke out on the floor of the House. We have the video of it. We're gonna show you in a second. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is the one who seems to have started it, for lack of a better way of putting it. So let's take a look at the footage first.
Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
All right, so obviously hard to make out what she is saying or others are saying there. But let me explain who said what to the best of our ability. Getting this from CNN's reporting, Representative Lauren Boebert apparently complained that, quote, silent prayers get silent results. Okay, but wait, after the mass shootings, you guys constantly say thoughts and prayers. So here, I've seen people on the left, including in our audience, saying it, but not 1% sarcastic. Like, really, our thoughts go out to Charlie's family. It's tragic. He has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, etc. So what else should we do? So I don't know what she means, and I don't know what she's looking for. Okay, then Representative Anna Paulina Luna said, "You effing caused this." She shouted to the Democrats across the House chamber. And in response, Democrats could be heard, this now I'm quoting CNN, could be heard shouting back about a school shooting in Colorado Wednesday and a call for action on gun violence. Hey guys, I've got more, but I got a suggestion for those in the House. How about yelling at each other, instead of yelling at each other and recriminations back and forth, you guys roll up your sleeves and do something about it. So if you're saying, hey, this is another gun shooting, and we think the answer is action on gun violence, then, and maybe that might have protected Charlie's life or saved Charlie's life, then instead of yelling, do something about it, introduce a bill. If you're a Republican and you're super mad about it and you think what would help, you guys always say mental health. Now I'm talking about the Republican politicians. Okay, if it's mental health, do you want to do a bill that gets more mental health funding today? That could potentially be productive. Or do you just want to yell at each other? Well, there's more yelling. As she walked into the Capitol, according to CNN, Luna also lashed out at Democrats and accused them of, quote, getting people killed. As she spoke to reporters, and she said, quote, stop with the rhetoric. You're getting people killed. You're going to get one of us killed too while you continue doing it. Yes, so both sides have to stop with the rhetoric. But I would argue that her saying you caused this is part of the problematic rhetoric to begin with. So, guys, okay, no one should have shot Charlie or anyone else for what he said, no matter how much you disagree with it. Also, no one should rile up political violence today to say, oh, okay, so we have to strike back, or you caused this, etc. Because then you are doing the same problem. You're saying, oh, okay, if you disagree with, the left disagree with Charlie. By disagreeing with him, they have caused this. So now we should be super mad at all of the left and not just the shooter. Okay, that just doesn't make any sense. So these psychotic shooters, whether they're on the left, the right, wherever they are in the political spectrum, race, religion, doesn't matter. To me, there are two unifying factors. One is, well, they are all shootings. So you can say it's okay, I don't mind. And Charlie was an enormous advocate of the Second Amendment. But it is guns that do it. And so you could say that okay, yeah, but people shoot the guns, etc. But that is a common theme. I'll just leave it at that. There aren't a lot of drive-by strangulations. And so this mental health is an issue, but we want more funding for mental health. We want red flag laws. We want things not to take anyone's rights away, but to actually begin to minimize the out of control violence in this country. And then the other thing that is leading to this is the nonstop hatred of everyone on each side. Psychos do not represent the entirety of the left or the right. Stop hating each other. The more that our Congress people get at each other's throats, in this case, thank God, only rhetorically, the more the hatred is driven up and makes the situation worse. All right, Sharon, your thoughts on how Congress has reacted?
Yes, it's so stupid. And it's interesting as I think about their first instinct is this, to have a go at each other and to clap back. I can guarantee you that every surgeon, first responder are not just part of the right who tried to work and save this man's life as he was bleeding out with blood gushing everywhere. Their instinct was, we got to do something to help. That's a normal human up close reaction, that instinct, right? If that's not your instinct, then you've morphed into something else, and it's not human. It's just not human. These are a bunch of clowns and fools. And sure, I could weight it and say which side is worse, but they're all fools. They haven't been able to get anything done. They've been dancing around the same issues, despite what we, the people, have demanded. All over the place. People who love guns, people who don't own guns, they haven't been able to do a thing. And this, during a moment of silence, is what they're doing? What trash boxes? This is trash. That's my reaction. Trash. And they all need to go. They could go home tonight and they could turn off the lights and we'd be either in the same predicament or we'd be better off. Trash.
All right, John.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolute trash, garbage, early candidates for garbage person of the week on TDR. They're terrible and they're fake. I mean, as you pointed out, Cenk, what they could do something, but we know that they don't want to do anything. Definitely not. They don't care. Like, what is the one thing they've debated on gun control like the last couple of years? Maybe trans people can't have guns. Other than that, they have no interest. But this fills the room and it fills up time and it lets them seem like they care. They love finding opportunities to cosplay as if they care about issues. And so, like trans players in sports or whatever lets them pretend to care about protecting women when generally all they do is strip away their rights. This lets them cosplay that they care about political violence for a little bit. And also it pushes other things out of consideration. And I think it's noteworthy that the particular members of the House that are making the most hay about this, Anna Paulina Luna, Nancy Mace, have been under a lot of pressure recently to do something about the Epstein files. They've been receiving a lot of criticism for wanting to posture as if they care about getting to the truth, but then voting to block it. And so now, is anybody talking about that? I mean, this is a momentous, tragic thing that happened, and they're the most fired up. So, is anybody going to want to pressure them to actually do what they've sworn that they would? I think it's very convenient for them to pretend to care, knowing that they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, so look, to be fair to Representative Luna, and even in this moment, I'm gonna do that. She did know Charlie Kirk personally, and so if she, is enraged by what happened to him and is emotional today, okay, I get it. But then we have to get back to sanity. And so look, so some of the Democrats have been saying, look, 3 Democrats were just shot very recently, right? You saw that happen in the news a couple of weeks ago. Okay, but this whataboutism is going to just get us all killed, okay? So instead of saying, oh, well, the Republicans had it coming because some rando psychotic Republican shot 3 Democrats, or the left has it coming because some psycho shot Charlie Kirk, how about we go in the exact opposite direction and say no one has it coming? Let's stop spreading hatred and let's start spreading empathy. And it's okay to massively disagree with someone. Look, we had Charlie Kirk on the show at the RNC and DNC, right? You guys, a lot of you saw that. And so we disagreed on a lot of things. And then we had a couple of issues where we had shocking agreement. We had agreement about, first of all, representing Americans, and he took on the donor class in a way that actually shocked me. I didn't expect that at all. But I would have never found out if I hadn't talked to him. We agreed on banning private equity from buying residential homes because it's driving up home prices, et cetera. I was really surprised that he agreed with that. But that's because we agreed to be human beings and talk to one another instead of constantly just yelling at one another. And I know that a lot of people on both sides didn't like that. No, I want you to yell at each other. I don't want you to talk to each other. I don't want you to know if you have agreements. And he said terrible things. And on his side, people think I've said terrible things. So what? It's America. We're allowed to say whatever we want. We have freedom of speech. And so if you think he said something terrible, then you fight back with words and you convince people. But you don't fight back with violence. Otherwise, nobody's gonna be around to find out who won. There is no winning with violence. There's only death and destruction. So no, I'm proud that I reached out. I'm proud that we have a show that emphasizes empathy, and I'll do it again. And I'm gonna do it again and again. And right now I offer a hand to anyone on the right who's in media or in politics and say, let's come together. Let's find a way to come together so that we don't egg on the worst parts of our nature, that instead we start to spread ideas that come from our better angels and empathy for one another. And remember that we're all American citizens and we're all in this together, no matter how much we disagree. So I want to end this segment with something very nice that someone wrote in. But the reason I'm reading it is because, guys, on the Young Turks now, we've said this for years, open minds and open hearts. That's what we're about. And if you have an open heart, a man getting shot in the neck and dying and leaving behind his young wife and his 3-year-old and his 1-year-old should break your heart. If it doesn't, you've lost a little piece of your humanity. Please, please get it back. I believe in you, I think you can. And you do that through empathy and love. And so, and if you're open-minded, you begin to realize that this is not the way. So with that prelude, handle named Zach DeSoto said, Cenk, the honesty of your take has caused me to reflect on my lack of empathy for Kirk and feel some deal of shame. Hadn't realized how calloused I had become. Thank you. Wow. The reason I read that is because I want folks to learn from you, because you saying that in the middle of the show shows how open-minded you were. So yeah, we're dug into our trenches, guys. I get it. Oh, the other side said this and they want to do that and we got to fight back. You're right, we do have to fight back, but through our words and through politics, not through violence, not through hatred. And if you're giving into hatred, you're helping the forces of hatred. Instead, especially today, and by the way, especially if you're on the left, reach out and say to someone on the right, I'm so sorry for your loss. And this is not what this country is supposed to be about. And on behalf of the great majority of the left, I say to Charlie Kirk's family, our hearts go out to you in every imaginable way. We are so sorry for your loss. And God, if we could turn this moment into something that is healing and leads to empathy instead of something that leads to more hatred and more division, that would be amazing. And so we all have to work as hard as we can to try to get to a better place so something like this never happens again.